The mining colony pulsed with life. Its structures nestled into the rocky expanse of the asteroid like veins of crystal burrowing into ancient stone. A low, rhythmic hum vibrated through the control room as energy conduits powered the holographic displays that lined the walls. Elder Valor stood at the center of it all, his silhouette framed by the shifting glow of emergency alerts flashing across every screen. The sharp tang of overheated circuitry filled the air, mingling with the faint mineral scent of the colony's tunnels. The room buzzed with controlled panic. Technicians murmured urgently, their crystalline forms glowing dimly as their emotions rippled through them. Valor's forearms moved deliberately across the console, his smooth, translucent skin catching the light in fractured rainbows. Every movement betrayed his underlying tension, but his voice remained steady. "Report," he said, the word resonating like wind through hollow glass. Crystal Thon, a younger operator, glanced up from his station. His body, usually radiant with youthful energy, had dimmed to a pale blue. "Long-range scanners confirm. 24 ships, Elder. They entered the system 6 minutes ago. Their trajectory suggests direct approach." Valor's form clouded, a telltale sign of his deepening concern. He turned to the main display, where a grainy rendering of the incoming fleet rotated slowly. The ships were jagged and predatory, their dark surfaces absorbing starlight like voids made tangible. "And their intent?" Valor's voice held a faint tremor, betraying the mounting dread he fought to suppress. "They're in attack formation," Thon whispered, "and they match the Void Reapers." The room fell silent. Every technician froze, their forms flickering with pale, fearful light. The Void Reapers, an enigma of terror whispered about in the darkest tales. They were the monsters of the stars, known for consuming everything in their path and leaving nothing but barren husks. The Ayadari had always considered themselves too far from the galactic core to be of interest to such predators. But now, the truth loomed just hours away. Valor inhaled deeply, his chest expanding as his form brightened with forced calm. "Activate the colony shields. Begin evacuation protocols. Get our people underground." Crystal Kive, a senior technician with an amber glow, interjected, her voice urgent. "Elder, the shields were designed for asteroid impacts, not a fleet this size. They'll crumble within minutes of engagement." "I'm aware," Valor replied, his tone sharpening, "but it will buy us time." The weight of his words settled heavily over the room. They all knew the truth. The colony had no weapons, no defense fleet, and no way to hold off the attackers. The underground shelters were a last, fragile hope. Thon hesitated before speaking again. "Elder, should we contact the Galactic Council?" Valor's body dimmed momentarily, a visual sigh. "The nearest council fleet is 3 weeks away. The Void Reapers will be here in less than a day." The room sank into silence again, the reality of their situation pressing down like a heavy stone. Valor looked around, seeing the fear reflected in the dimming light of his people. They were miners, scientists, and families. They had come to this edge of the galaxy to build, not to fight. The thought of their utter helplessness burned within him. Then, like a spark in the darkness, a forbidden thought entered his mind. "There is one option," Valor said slowly, his crystalline form flickering with indecision. All eyes turned to him. Thon stepped closer, his curiosity faintly brightening his dim aura. "What option, Elder?" Valor hesitated, his hands hovering over the console. "The Deathworlders." Gasps rippled through the room. Every young Adari learned of humanity in their history lessons, a species born from a planet that seemed designed to kill, a death world of relentless gravity, searing heat, and predatory life forms. Humans were known for their raw strength, their unyielding tenacity, and their terrifying ability to endure. Centuries ago, the Galactic Council had voted to isolate them, deeming them too dangerous to interact with. But the humans had left behind one thing, a single emergency frequency, never meant to be used unless no other hope remained. Kayev's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Elder, contacting them would violate every law we've sworn to uphold. The Council Valor interrupted, his tone fierce. "Is not here. They cannot save us. The humans might." Thon's glow pulsed with uncertainty. "But the stories say they're unpredictable, violent. What if they turn on us?" Valor's form brightened with a steely resolve. "Then we take that risk. Because there is a difference, Thon. The Void Reapers destroy. Humans fight to protect." Without waiting for further protest, Valor moved his fingers over the console, inputting the sequence for the forbidden frequency. Each tap felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of his decision could physically resist him. The colony's main communications array pulsed to life, sending a powerful signal into the void of space. A simple message, written in the human language of English. "To any human ships, this is the Ayadari mining colony in Sector 9-3-Alpha. We are under attack by a hostile fleet. We have no weapons. We have children. Please, help us." The moment the message sent, the room seemed to hold its breath. Valor looked up at the main display where the Void Reaper's fleet loomed ever closer. He had done all he could. Now they could only wait and hope. Thon moved to the observation window, staring at the distant stars. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "Do you think they'll come?" Valor joined him, the faint light of the stars reflecting off his crystalline surface. "The stories say they never abandon a cry for help. Now, we'll see if the stories are true." The minutes stretched into an eternity as the Ayadari worked tirelessly to prepare. The emergency sirens wailed through the colony, their haunting tones echoing in the tunnels. Families gathered what little they could carry before retreating to the underground shelters. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of tension, the faint vibrations of distant drills reverberating through the walls. Valor returned to the console, his eyes fixed on the tracking data. The Void Reapers were advancing steadily, their formation tightening like a predator preparing to strike. His people's lights dimmed with despair, but Valor refused to let his hope waver. Above the planet, the stars shone cold and indifferent, unaware of the drama unfolding beneath them. Somewhere beyond those stars, the message raced through the darkness, a desperate plea for the only beings in the galaxy feared even by the Void Reapers, the Deathworlders, the humans. The Eternal Resolve drifted silently in the abyss of space, its immense hull dappled with the soft glow of distant stars. The ship was a fortress, forged from metals capable of withstanding the crushing gravity of humanity's homeworld. Inside, the hum of the engine resonated through the deck plates, a constant reminder of its latent power. Admiral Darius Kane stood on the bridge, a monolith of composure, his sharp features etched with years of command. The dark fabric of his uniform was pristine, unyielding, much like the man himself. His eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the holographic display hovering before him. Tactical maps, encrypted signals, and long-range reconnaissance scrolled in shimmering blue. Behind him, the bridge crew operated in focused silence, their voices a low murmur as they fed data into the ship's omnipresent AI. The sudden chime of an alert shattered the steady rhythm of work. Lieutenant Rourke, stationed at the communications array, sat up straighter, her brow furrowed as she leaned closer to her console. "Admiral," Rourke called out, her voice tight with urgency. "We're receiving a transmission on the emergency frequency." Kane's attention snapped to her, his steel-gray eyes narrowing. The emergency frequency, a relic from an era when humanity still sought to prove its place among the stars. It had not been activated in over 2 centuries. "Play it," Kane ordered, his voice low but commanding. The message crackled through the speakers, its tone raw with desperation. An alien voice, careful and halting, spoke in English. The plea was simple, direct. A colony under attack, no defenses, children at risk. The final words hung in the air, heavy with urgency. "Please, help us!" The bridge fell silent. The faint hum of the ship seemed louder now, filling the void left by the message. The crew exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of apprehension and determination. Humanity's isolation from the wider galaxy had been deliberate, a self-imposed exile after centuries of fear and misunderstanding. Yet, for all their caution, the humans had never abandoned their instinct to protect. Kane broke the silence. "Atlas," he said, addressing the ship's AI. The avatar appeared instantly, a translucent, blue-hued figure with a calm, measured tone. "Signal originates from Sector 9-3-Alpha," Atlas reported. "An Adari mining colony. Long-range scans confirm the presence of 24 unidentified vessels matching Void Reaper configurations." Kane's jaw tightened. Everyone on the bridge knew the name. The Void Reapers were legends of destruction, their victims silenced so thoroughly that only their ruins told the tale. "Time to intercept?" Kane asked. 38 hours at maximum safe velocity," Atlas replied. "The Void Reapers will reach the colony in less than 24. A grim silence fell over the bridge. Kane's gaze lingered on the holographic display, where the colony's location blinked like a fragile ember in the void. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing against him, a decision that would defy the Galactic Council's treaties, risking humanity's fragile political standing. But Darius Kane had never been one to stand idle while innocents suffered. "Lieutenant Rourke," he said, his voice cutting through the tension, "send a message to Earth Command. Inform them we've received a distress signal and are responding under Article 7 of the Human Emergency Response Protocol." Rourke's lips twitched into the faintest of smiles. Article 7 was humanity's oldest maritime law, rooted in the principle that no ship could ignore a call for help. It was ancient, but unbreakable. Kane turned to the helm. "Set course for Sector 9-3-Alpha. Maximum velocity. I want every system running hot." "Yes, sir," came the unified response. The ship's engines roared to life, a deep, resonant thunder that vibrated through the hull. The Eternal Resolve surged forward, its escort fleet following in formation. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Kane folded his arms, his mind already racing ahead. "Atlas, tactical analysis. What are our odds?" 9%, Admiral," the AI replied without hesitation. "Our current trajectory will place us within firing range moments after the Void Reapers initiate their assault." 9%, Kane repeated, his voice thoughtful. "Then we'll have to be efficient." On the lower decks, the ship buzzed with activity. Soldiers donned their combat armor, the hiss of hydraulic systems blending with the metallic clink of weapons being prepared. Engineers fine-tuned the gravity-based weaponry, technology deemed too dangerous by the Galactic Council, but perfected by humanity's relentless ingenuity. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable mix of fear and determination. Captain Elias Ward, the commander of the Marine Division, strode through the armory, his voice carrying above the din. "Listen up," he barked, his tone sharp but steady. "We're walking into hell. Void Reapers don't negotiate. They don't retreat. But we're not here to run either. We're here to show them what happens when they cross the wrong species." The soldiers responded with a resounding cheer, their confidence a fire that burned despite the odds. In the engineering bay, Chief Specialist Anna Cole examined the latest readings from the ship's experimental gravity pulse cannon. The device hummed faintly, its energy core glowing with an otherworldly light. It was humanity's ace, a weapon capable of bending the laws of physics themselves. Cole's hands moved deftly over the controls, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "This thing better work," she muttered under her breath. "It will," said her assistant, a young ensign with an earnest face. "It has to." On the bridge, the tension was palpable as the ship hurtled toward its destination. Kane stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the display. The colony's image grew sharper with each passing moment, a fragile speck against the vastness of space. He could almost hear the fear in their message, the weight of their plea. "Admiral," Atlas said, breaking the silence, "may I remind you that engaging the Void Reapers violates multiple intergalactic treaties?" "You may," Kane replied evenly. "And may I remind you that treaties mean nothing to the dead?" Atlas's hologram flickered, its expression unreadable. "Understood." As the ship neared the edge of the colony's system, Kane turned to his crew, his voice steady but edged with steel. "Prepare for battle. Today we remind the galaxy why they call us Deathworlders. We may be the monsters they fear, but we're the monsters who answer the call." The Eternal Resolve surged forward, its engines burning brighter than the stars, as the crew braced for the fight of their lives. The air in the Aodari colony's command center was thick with tension, the faint hum of the energy shields vibrating through the walls. Elder Valor stood motionless, his crystalline form dimmed, betraying the fear he refused to voice. The Void Reaper's fleet loomed closer on the holographic display, jagged shapes arranged in a methodical formation, their intent unmistakable. Around him his people worked feverishly, their soft glows pulsing erratically as they carried out his orders. "They've entered orbital range," Crystal Thane reported, his voice tight with urgency. "Their lead ships are powering up weapons. Impact in 5 minutes." Valor's fingers gripped the edge of the console, the sharp edges of his crystalline hands leaving faint scratches on the smooth surface. "Activate decoy beacons," he ordered. "Scatter them across the southern quadrants. Force them to waste time searching." Thon hesitated, his glow flickering. "Elder, the beacons are incomplete. They may not—" "Do it!" Valor snapped, his voice cutting through the room. "If we fall, it will not be without resistance." Thon nodded, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. Moments later, faint pulses of light shot into the atmosphere, scattering across the barren terrain surrounding the colony. On the display, the Void Reaper's ships adjusted their trajectory, hesitating for the briefest of moments. "Good," Valor murmured, his tone more to himself than anyone else. "Every second counts." Outside, the colony shields flared as the first volley of plasma bolts struck, their impacts reverberating through the ground. The air filled with the acrid stench of scorched metal, mingling with the faint mineral tang of the asteroid itself. The walls shuddered, loose equipment clattering to the floor. Families huddled together in the underground shelters, their soft glowing bodies dimmed to a pale gray as fear rippled through them. In the upper levels, the Void Reapers began their descent. Their ships, hulking masses of jagged black metal, lowered onto the rocky surface like predators stalking their prey. Their landing was accompanied by an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional hiss of decompressing airlocks. Then, the Void Reapers emerged. They moved like shadows given form, their massive, armored bodies absorbing the dim light. Their limbs, unnaturally jointed, carried them forward with a predatory grace. Their weapons glowed faintly, an unsettling red hue that pulsed in rhythm with their movements. They spread out methodically, sweeping the colony's surface with chilling precision. "Elder!" Crystal Caev's voice broke through the static of the comms. "They're bypassing the decoys. They're scanning for thermal signatures. It's only a matter of time before they find the shelters." Valor's jaw tightened, his form briefly glowing brighter before dimming again. He turned to the command console and input a new set of commands. "Seal the primary access tunnels. Reroute all power to the maze defenses." Caev's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "Understood." The colony's underground labyrinth shifted as walls reconfigured, transforming straight corridors into twisting passages. The maze had been designed for emergencies, its purpose to confuse and delay invaders. It was a desperate measure, but desperation was all they had left. In the shelters, whispers filled the air, a faint chorus of fear and uncertainty. Parents held their children close, their soft murmurs a fragile attempt at comfort. The dim emergency lighting cast long shadows on the walls, the flickering glow adding to the pervasive sense of unease. Crystal Wyleth, a young technician assigned to monitor the shelters, moved quietly through the rows of huddled figures. Her form, though trembling faintly, held a steady warmth. She crouched beside a family, offering them words of reassurance. "The Elder won't let them reach us. He's planned for this." The mother nodded, though her glow remained faint. "But if they do? What then?" Yleth hesitated, her response caught in her throat. She didn't have an answer, but her silence carried more weight than any hollow reassurance. She squeezed the mother's hand gently, the gesture a promise to stand with them, no matter the outcome. Above ground, the Void Reapers reached the outer defenses. Their weapons discharged with eerie precision, each strike dismantling the colony's automated turrets and drones. The Reapers moved without urgency, as though victory were inevitable. One of them paused, its segmented head tilting as it scanned the terrain. It let out a guttural, mechanical growl and raised its weapon, firing at a faint pulse of light emanating from a decoy beacon. The explosion sent a plume of debris into the air, but the beacon had done its job. Another precious moment bought. Inside the command center, the walls shuddered again as another volley struck the shields. Crystal Than's hands flew across the console, his voice rising with frustration. "Elder, the outer defenses are collapsing. The shields won't hold much longer." "They don't need to," Vylor said, his tone cold with resolve. "They only need to last until help arrives." Than glanced at the countdown on his display. 30 hours. It might as well have been a lifetime. As the Void Reapers breached the first access tunnel, the maze defenses activated. Walls shifted seamlessly, splitting their forces and leading them down false paths. Some Reapers became trapped in dead ends, their frustration evident in the way they pounded against the walls. Others advanced cautiously, their weapons scanning for hidden traps. One group stumbled into an ambush of their own making. The Ayadari, though untrained in combat, had rigged makeshift explosives from mining equipment. The explosion reverberated through the tunnels, the shockwave sending dust and debris cascading from the ceiling. The Void Reapers were relentless, but so too were the Ayadari's efforts to slow them. Back in the command center, Vylor watched the chaos unfold on the monitors. The Reapers' movements were swift, calculated, and terrifyingly efficient. He knew it was only a matter of time before they reached the shelters. His hands tightened into fists, the edges of his crystalline form shimmering faintly. "Elder," Cave's voice came through the comms, strained but steady. "We've done all we can. If the Deathworlders don't arrive soon—" "They will," Vylor interrupted, his voice firm. "They have to." The faint vibration of the shields finally gave out, the silence that followed more deafening than the noise. Vylor closed his eyes briefly, the weight of his people's lives pressing heavily on him. He opened them again, his resolve unshaken. "To all Ayadari," he said, his voice echoing through the shelters, "hold on, help is coming, and if they do not find us in time, know this. We stood, and we fought. We are not forgotten." As the Void Reapers closed in on the last barriers between them and the shelters, a new sound emerged. Faint at first, but growing louder, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the ground and air alike. Vylor's eyes widened, hope flickering within him. On the horizon, streaks of light appeared against the black expanse of space. The hum transformed into a roar as the Eternal Resolve and its fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their engines burning brighter than any star. Vylor exhaled, the tension in his body easing ever so slightly. "They're here," he whispered, his words carrying both relief and awe. "The Deathworlders have arrived." The Eternal Resolve burst into real space like a knife tearing through fabric, its massive form wreathed in the residual glow of hyperspace. The sleek, dark hull seemed to absorb the starlight, a predator emerging from the void. Behind it, the rest of the Deathworlder fleet followed in perfect formation, their engines burning fiercely as they slowed to combat speed. From the colony below, the sudden arrival lit the night sky, their trails resembling celestial fire descending from the heavens. Elder Vylor stood transfixed at the command center's observation window, his crystalline form catching the fiery reflections of humanity's arrival. The faint hum of his people's whispers filled the air, a mix of disbelief and tentative hope. The Void Reapers, so methodical and unrelenting mere moments ago, hesitated. On the colony's external monitors, their sleek ships shifted position, recalibrating their tactics to this new, unexpected threat. In the heart of the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Kane observed the tactical display, his sharp eyes narrowing as he took in the enemy fleet. The Void Reapers had formed a defensive perimeter around their largest ship, a massive vessel bristling with dark, angular weaponry. Their formation spoke of centuries of combat efficiency, predators that had always hunted, never fearing anything would hunt them in return. "Atlas," Kane said, his voice calm, yet edged with command. "Analysis of enemy fleet." The holographic avatar flickered to life beside him, its translucent blue form casting faint light over the bridge. 24 vessels, Admiral. Primary configurations indicate heavily armored dreadnoughts supported by swift interceptors. Their weapons are energy-based, with concentrated firepower designed to overwhelm shields. Defensive capabilities are formidable but lack adaptability. Kane's lips quirked into a grim smile. Let's test how adaptable they are under pressure. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Orders snapped through the air. Fingers danced across controls, and the faint thrum of the ship's power system surged as weapon arrays were primed. Kane watched the display, his hands clasped behind his back, his mind a tempest of calculations and possibilities. "Deploy Phantom Wing," he commanded. "Target their rear formation. We'll divide their attention." On his order, a squadron of sleek, cloaked strike fighters peeled away from the main fleet. Invisible to conventional sensors, the ships maneuvered like specters, slipping unnoticed toward the Void Reaper's vulnerable flanks. Kane's strategy was clear: confusion and precision, exploiting the Void Reaper's reliance on overwhelming force. Meanwhile, on the colony's surface, the Aodari watched in stunned silence as the human fleet began its assault. Crystal Kayev, monitoring the external cameras from the maze's control room, felt her glow brighten involuntarily. "Elder, they're attacking," she whispered, awe thick in her voice. Valor's gaze remained fixed on the sky, where flashes of light erupted like violent stars. "Not just attacking," he murmured, his voice a mix of wonder and reverence. "They're carving through them." In space, the first strike was surgical. Phantom Wing's fighters unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles, shattering the rear shields of a Void Reaper dreadnought. The explosions were muted in the vacuum of space, but the visual spectacle was no less breathtaking. Flares of orange and white illuminating the jagged black hulls. The Void Reapers reacted swiftly, their interceptors breaking formation to pursue the elusive attackers. Yet the humans anticipated the move. The Eternal Resolve and its escort ships advanced, their railguns and gravity pulse cannons targeting the exposed vessels. The Void Reaper's precision was no match for humanity's unpredictability. Where one human ship appeared vulnerable, another was waiting to ambush the attackers. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rourke called out, her voice sharp, "enemy dreadnought is powering its primary weapon." Kane's jaw tightened. The display highlighted the Void Reaper's flagship, its ominous energy core glowing brighter with each passing second. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kane barked. "Atlas, calculate the weapon's trajectory and prepare a counterstrike." The air on the bridge seemed to thicken as tension mounted. Atlas's hologram flickered, its expressionless face betraying a faint urgency. "Weapon discharge in 7 seconds. Trajectory locked." The Void Reaper's weapon fired, a beam of pure energy lancing through space. It sliced through the battlefield, narrowly missing the Eternal Resolve. The heat from its passage seared the side of one escort frigate, leaving molten scars on its hull. Kane's hands gripped the console, his voice cold and steady. "Return fire. Concentrate all gravity pulses on their flagship." The human fleet responded with brutal efficiency. Streams of focused gravity waves rippled outward, bending light and distorting space itself. The Void Reaper's flagship groaned under the strain, its hull buckling as artificial gravity pulled it apart. For the first time, the Predators faltered, their movements disjointed and erratic. The Eternal Resolve moved through the battlefield with relentless purpose, its hull scorched but unyielding. Flashes of light erupted all around, the energy of the Void Reaper's weapons igniting the darkness of space in chaotic bursts. Admiral Kane stood rigid at the helm, his gaze fixed on the tactical display as the remaining Void Reaper ships regrouped into a desperate defensive formation. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rourke called out, her voice taut, "enemy flagship is repositioning. They're fortifying around their core fleet." "They're trying to buy time," Kane said, his tone cold. "They know they're losing." The bridge buzzed with controlled chaos. The hum of consoles and the rapid-fire exchange of orders layered with the distant vibration of weapons fire rattling the ship's frame. Kane felt the tension building, not in panic, but in the weight of precision. His crew was a symphony of expertise, each note sharp and deliberate. "Prepare secondary assault formation," Kane commanded. "We're not giving them that time." The Eternal Resolve shifted course, its engines roaring with energy. Below, on the surface of the colony, the Ayadari looked up through shattered windows and holographic feeds, their crystalline forms flickering with hesitant hope. Elder Valor stood among his people, his faint glow brighter now as the battle above unfolded. The distant flashes of destruction illuminated the tunnels, and every tremor felt through the ground was a visceral reminder of the stakes. "They're pushing them back," Kive said, her voice trembling with awe as she monitored the battle from the maze's control room. "The Void Reapers are retreating." "Not retreating," Valor corrected, his tone heavy with understanding. "Reorganizing. They aren't finished yet." Even as he spoke, the Void Reapers made their next move. Their flagship, bristling with ominous spikes of black metal, fired a volley of energy beams that arced across space with deadly precision. The beams weren't aimed at the human fleet, but at the colony below. "Admiral!" Rourke's alarmed voice pierced the tension. "They're targeting the surface." Kane's mind moved like lightning. His jaw tightened, and his voice cut through the chaos. "Deploy forward interceptors. Redirect all available firepower to counter those beams." The smaller human ships surged ahead, weaving through enemy fire with uncanny precision. Their weapons lit the void, intercepting the incoming beams in mid-flight. The resulting explosions rippled outward, brilliant and terrible, the shockwaves reaching the colony's atmosphere. On the surface, the Ayadari felt the aftershocks, the ground shaking as if the asteroid itself were groaning under the strain. "Shields are failing in sectors 3 and 7. Kive's voice echoed through the maze, her crystalline form dimming slightly. "Elder, if those beams hit again—" "They won't," Valor interrupted firmly, though the faint crack in his voice betrayed his own doubt. "They can't." Above, Admiral Kane's strategy shifted again. The human fleet tightened its formation, focusing its firepower on the Void Reaper flagship. Streams of kinetic projectiles and gravity pulses rained down on the massive vessel, carving into its armor with methodical precision. The flagship groaned under the assault, its shields flickering wildly, but it did not fall. "Enemy flagship is holding," Atlas reported, its voice as steady as ever. "Energy readings indicate they're redirecting power to a core weapon." Kane's eyes narrowed. "They're planning a final strike." The bridge was silent for a moment, the weight of the words hanging heavy in the air. The Void Reapers were cornered, and a cornered predator was at its most dangerous. "Prepare all ships for evasive maneuvers," Kane ordered, "and ready the Eternal Resolve's primary cannon. We're taking that flagship down." The Eternal Resolve surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed the distance between itself and the enemy flagship. The two behemoths faced each other like ancient titans, the space between them alight with fire and fury. Kane's ship trembled under the barrage of enemy fire, but it pressed on, every strike absorbed by its reinforced hull. "Admiral, we're at optimal range," Rourke said, her voice steady despite the tension. Kane nodded once. "Fire." The Eternal Resolve unleashed its full power. The primary cannon, a marvel of human engineering, erupted with a blinding beam of energy that tore through the darkness like a lance. The beam struck the Void Reaper flagship squarely in its core. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent, the sheer intensity of the strike leaving an almost reverent pause. Then the flagship began to fracture. The cracks spread across its hull like lightning, glowing with an otherworldly light. The ship trembled, its massive form buckling under the catastrophic damage. Finally, with a deafening explosion, it disintegrated, scattering debris across the battlefield. The shockwave rippled outward, sending smaller Void Reaper ships spinning into disarray. The human fleet pressed the advantage. With their flagship destroyed, the remaining Void Reaper ships faltered. Human vessels moved like predators through the chaos, picking off the scattered enemy forces with surgical precision. On the surface, the Ayadari watched in stunned silence as the tide of the battle turned. Valor stood motionless, his glow brighter than it had been in weeks. The destruction of the flagship was a spectacle of power, a display of what humanity was capable of. "They're winning," Kive whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're actually winning." But even as the Void Reaper's defeat became apparent, a new sense of unease settled over Valor. He glanced at the monitors, where the remaining enemy ships fought with a desperation that felt Wrong. It wasn't merely survival driving them. It was something more. "They're stalling," Valor said softly, the realization dawning on him. "They're buying time for something." Above, Admiral Kane seemed to sense the same thing. His gaze lingered on the tactical display, where the remaining Void Reaper ships maneuvered in ways that defied logic. He turned to Atlas, his voice sharp. "Scan for anomalies. What are they planning?" The AI's hologram flickered as it processed the request. "Unusual energy signatures detected near the asteroid belt on the system's edge. It appears they've deployed a secondary fleet, currently powering an unknown device." Kane's jaw clenched. They weren't retreating. They were setting a trap. The realization sent a fresh wave of tension through the bridge. The Void Reapers' strategy was clear now. They had sacrificed their main fleet to buy time for a larger, more devastating weapon. Kane's mind raced, calculating their next move. "All ships, regroup," he ordered. "We're not done yet." As the human fleet adjusted its formation, a distant glow appeared on the edge of the battlefield. The light grew steadily brighter, its intensity cutting through the darkness like a second sun. Whatever the Void Reapers had activated, it was unlike anything humanity had faced before. Kane stood at the helm, his expression unreadable. "Prepare for Phase 2, he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "This fight isn't over." The glow at the system's edge intensified, a pulse of unnatural light that seemed to warp the space around it. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, his sharp eyes fixed on the tactical display as the Void Reapers' secondary fleet emerged. Their ships were larger, more menacing, with jagged hulls that gleamed like obsidian blades under the distant starlight. At the center of their formation was the device, a massive construct of interlocking rings, spinning with ominous purpose. "Atlas," Kane said, his voice low and deliberate. "What are we looking at?" The AI flickered into view, its translucent form illuminated by the glow of the console. "Preliminary scans suggest the device is a gravitational singularity generator. If fully activated, it could create a controlled black hole." Kane's expression darkened, his mind racing. A weapon of such magnitude could obliterate not just the human fleet, but the colony and surrounding space. The Void Reapers weren't simply fighting to win. They were prepared to destroy everything to ensure no one claimed victory. "Time to activation?" Kane asked. 15 minutes, Atlas replied. "Their fleet is redirecting all available energy to power the device." Kane turned to his crew, his voice cutting through the rising tension. "We can't let that weapon go live. Prepare for immediate engagement. I want every ship in the fleet targeting their power conduits." The bridge crew moved swiftly, their hands flying over controls as the ship's systems roared to life. The hum of the engines deepened, a visceral sound that resonated through the deck plates. Kane could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him, the lives of his crew, the Aedari, and the future of humanity resting on the success of this mission. "Deploy infiltration team," Kane commanded. "We'll need boots on that device if we're going to take it offline." Lieutenant Rourke hesitated, her fingers hovering over her console. "Sir, the infiltration team will have to breach their defensive line. The odds of success—" "I'm aware," Kane interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "They know the risks. Send them." In the launch bay, the infiltration team was already suiting up. Captain Elias Ward adjusted his armor, the reinforced plates clicking into place with a finality that sent a chill through the room. The scent of engine grease and ozone filled the air, mingling with the low hiss of hydraulic systems. Around him, his squad performed last-minute checks on their equipment, their expressions grim but focused. "You all know the mission," Ward said, his voice steady. "We get in, disable the generator, and get out. No distractions, no heroics. If that thing goes off, none of us make it out alive." The squad nodded, their silence more resolute than words. They boarded their drop pods, the cramped spaces vibrating with the faint hum of the launch systems. As the countdown began, Ward closed his eyes, steadying his breath. "Launch!" the voice over the comms ordered, and the pods shot out into the void. The infiltration team hurtled toward the Void Reaper fleet, the pods trembling as they pierced through waves of enemy fire. Bright explosions lit the darkness, the stark light reflecting off the armor of their suits. Inside the pods, the soldiers braced themselves, the heat of re-entry palpable even through their reinforced exteriors. Ward's pod struck the surface of the generator's platform with a deafening crash. The hatch blew open and he emerged, his rifle raised as he scanned the area. The platform was a maze of glowing conduits and spinning machinery, the air thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the deep vibration of the device's pulsing core. "Move!" Ward ordered, his voice sharp over the comms. The team advanced, their boots clanging against the metal surface. The Void Reapers were waiting. Shadows emerged from the corners of the platform, their massive forms lit by the flickering light of the generator. The clash was immediate, bullets and plasma bolts tearing through the air in a cacophony of destruction. Ward ducked behind a pillar, the heat of an energy bolt searing past his shoulder. He leaned out, firing a controlled burst that struck a Void Reaper soldier in the chest. The creature staggered, its segmented limbs twitching before it collapsed in a heap. "Push forward!" Ward barked. "We don't have time to waste!" The team moved with precision, each soldier covering the other as they advanced toward the generator's core. The machinery around them groaned, the spinning rings accelerating as the weapon neared activation. The light grew brighter, casting harsh shadows that danced across the platform. "Core in sight," one soldier reported, his voice tight. "Setting charges." Ward covered the soldier as he placed the explosives, his gaze darting to the energy conduits that pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic glow. The Void Reapers weren't letting up. More of them swarmed onto the platform, their weapons firing in coordinated bursts. Back on the Eternal Resolve, Kane watched the infiltration team's progress on the tactical display. The seconds ticked down, each one a reminder of how close they were to disaster. "Focus all firepower on their fleet," Kane ordered. "Keep them off that platform." The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing as they tore into the Void Reaper ships. The battlefield was a symphony of destruction, the deep bass of explosions mingling with the sharp staccato of energy fire. The human ships moved with calculated aggression, exploiting every weakness in the enemy's formation. On the platform, Ward's team fought with everything they had. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and the deafening roar of combat. The charges were set, their timers blinking with a steady red light. "Charges set!" the soldier yelled. "We need to clear the blast zone!" "Go!" Ward shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team fell back, their retreat covered by suppressing fire. The Void Reapers pressed forward, their numbers overwhelming. One soldier was struck, his body jerking as a plasma bolt pierced his armor. He fell, his form still. Ward clenched his jaw, his focus unyielding. "Keep moving!" The team reached the edge of the platform, diving into their escape pods as the countdown reached its final seconds. The platform erupted in a blinding explosion, the shock wave tearing through the Void Reaper fleet. The generator's spinning rings shattered, their remnants spiraling into the void. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, cheers erupted as the display showed the device's destruction. Kane allowed himself a brief exhale, the weight of the moment settling over him. "Well done," he said quietly. The Void Reaper fleet, now leaderless and scattered, began a disorganized retreat. The human fleet pressed forward, their final strikes ensuring the enemy's defeat. The colony below remained intact, the Aedari safe for now. But as Kane stared at the remnants of the Void Reaper's weapon, a question lingered in his mind. Who had given them such a weapon, and why? The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The remnants of the Void Reaper fleet drifted aimlessly, their jagged forms silhouetted against the vastness of space. Fires flickered along the hulls of shattered ships, glowing like dying embers scattered in the abyss. Admiral Kane stood at the helm of the Eternal Resolve, his mind turning over the pieces of a puzzle that felt far from solved. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the chaos before. "Status report," Kane ordered, his voice cutting through the subdued hum of the bridge. Atlas materialized beside him, its holographic form faintly flickering. "The enemy fleet is in full retreat, Admiral. 73% of their forces have been neutralized." Remaining vessels are scattering beyond sensor range. And the weapon? Kane's gaze lingered on the tactical display, where the debris field of the destroyed gravitational generator was slowly expanding. The device has been rendered inert, Atlas confirmed. Residual energy readings suggest no further threat. However, there are anomalous data signatures consistent with advanced external tampering. Kane's eyes narrowed. Tampering? By whom? That remains unclear, Atlas replied. The signatures do not match known Void Reaper technology. Kane's jaw tightened as he processed the information. The Void Reapers were ruthless, but they were not innovators. Someone had armed them with a weapon beyond their capability. Whoever it was, they had almost succeeded in turning the colony and humanity's fleet into nothing more than memories. Lieutenant Rourke, Kane said, turning toward his communications officer. Send a message to Earth Command, inform them of our status, and request an investigation into the origin of the weapon. Include all available data. Rourke nodded, her fingers moving swiftly over the console. Message prepared, sir. Sending now. As the bridge crew resumed their tasks, Kane's gaze shifted to the external monitors. The Ayadari colony's surface was visible below, its structures battered but intact. The faint glow of their crystalline forms reflected in the ship's viewport, a reminder of what had been at stake. He exhaled slowly, the tension in his chest loosening just enough to let him think clearly. Atlas, Kane said, his voice softening. What's the status of the colony? Preliminary scans indicate minimal structural damage, the AI replied. The Ayadari have successfully returned to their shelters. Casualty reports are minimal, though several injuries have been noted. Elder Valor is requesting a direct audience. Kane nodded. Prepare a transport. I'll meet with him personally. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, its engines humming with a steady rhythm that resonated in Kane's ears. The air below shimmered with heat from the battle, the ground, scarred with the remnants of the Void Reaper's assault. As the shuttle landed, a cloud of dust rose around it, catching the faint light of the colony's emergency beacons. Kane stepped out, the soles of his boots crunching against the cracked earth. The air smelled of scorched metal and ozone, mingled with the faint mineral tang unique to the Ayadari's environment. Elder Valor stood waiting near the entrance to the central structure, his crystalline form gleaming faintly in the dim light. Admiral Kane, Valor said, his voice resonant yet subdued. Your arrival was unexpected, but you saved us. Kane met the Elder's gaze, his expression unreadable. We answered your call. That's what we do. Valor's form flickered with a mix of emotions, relief, gratitude, and something Kane couldn't quite place. You risked much by coming here. The Galactic Council does not look kindly on such actions. Kane's lips twitched into a faint smile. The Council wasn't the one under attack. Valor nodded, his glow dimming slightly. Still, we owe you our lives. If not for your fleet, we would have been... He stopped, his words catching in his throat. Destroyed. Kane glanced around, his sharp eyes taking in the damage to the colony. What's your situation now? How long until you're operational again? Our people are resilient, Valor said. We'll recover, though it will take time to rebuild. The Void Reapers targeted our critical infrastructure. Mining operations will be halted for months. Kane nodded, his mind already turning over strategies. We'll deploy repair drones to assist. They'll focus on restoring your power systems and stabilizing structural damage. We can also provide medical supplies and personnel. Valor's form brightened slightly, the gesture one of gratitude. Your kindness is unexpected, Admiral. Many in the galaxy see your kind as destroyers, not protectors. Kane's gaze hardened. Let them think what they want. We didn't come here for glory or gratitude. We came because someone needed us. Valor hesitated before speaking again. There's something else. During the battle, we detected transmissions, encrypted signals originating from the Void Reaper's fleet. They were unusual, not their typical communications. Kane's brow furrowed. Unusual how? Valor gestured toward the colony's central command center. I think it's best if you see for yourself. Inside the command center, the faint hum of machinery filled the air, mingling with the faint mineral scent of the underground structure. Valor led Kane to a central console, where Crystal Kiev was already waiting. She nodded respectfully, her glow flickering as she worked to bring up the data. "These are the transmissions we intercepted," Kiev explained, her voice steady despite the tension in her form. "They're fragmented, but the patterns suggest coordination with an external source." The holographic display came to life, showing a series of complex waveforms. Kane leaned closer, his sharp eyes scanning the data. The signals were intricate, layered with encryption that hinted at a level of sophistication far beyond the Void Reaper's known capabilities. "Atlas," Kane said, addressing the AI through his wrist communicator. "Analyze these transmissions. Can you trace their origin?" Atlas's voice replied almost immediately. "Analysis complete. The transmissions appear to have originated from a remote station located within the asteroid belt on the system's edge." Kane's eyes narrowed. "A hidden base?" "Likely," Atlas confirmed. "The encryption suggests advanced technology, potentially rivaling our own." Valor's glow dimmed. If someone armed the Void Reapers, they could pose an even greater threat than the Reapers themselves. Kane straightened, his expression grim. "We're not leaving this system until we know exactly who's pulling the strings. Atlas, deploy reconnaissance drones to the asteroid belt. I want detailed scans of that station." "Understood," Atlas replied. "Drones deploying now." Kane turned back to Valor. "We'll secure your colony, but this isn't over. Whoever orchestrated this attack won't get away with it." Valor inclined his head. "Your determination is reassuring, Admiral. I only hope it's enough." As Kane left the command center, his mind was already racing ahead. The Void Reapers were dangerous, but they weren't the architects of this disaster. Somewhere in the shadows, someone was pulling the strings, and Kane intended to find them. The battle might have ended, but the war was just beginning. The reconnaissance drones slipped silently through the asteroid belt, their sleek forms blending seamlessly with the void. Their sensors, tuned to detect even the faintest anomalies, scanned the jagged rocks and hidden crevices. In the heart of the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Kane watched the live feed, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. The tension on the bridge was palpable, the crew working in hushed tones as the weight of their mission pressed down on them. "Drone 1 reporting anomaly," Atlas announced, its voice steady. "Station detected. Coordinates locked." The display lit up, revealing a structure nestled within the dense field of debris. The station was unlike anything Kane had seen, its architecture alien and angular, with glowing conduits pulsing faintly along its surface. The design was neither Void Reaper nor Aodari, and its very presence radiated hostility. "Show me the energy signatures," Kane said, his voice cold. Atlas complied, overlaying data onto the image. The readings spiked unnaturally, the power levels indicating advanced weaponry and experimental systems. Whatever this station was, it was no mere hideout. It was a staging ground, a hub of technology far beyond what should have existed in this corner of the galaxy. "Prepare the fleet," Kane ordered, his voice like steel. "We're taking that station down." The crew sprang into action, the hum of activity rising as the fleet prepared for its final assault. Orders were relayed, weapons primed, and engines roared to life. The Eternal Resolve led the charge, its massive form cutting through the darkness with purpose. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rourke said, her voice tinged with concern, "if this station is the source of the weaponry, it could have defenses we're not prepared for." Kane's gaze didn't waver from the display. "Then we adapt. That's what we do." The fleet entered the asteroid belt, navigating the treacherous terrain with precision. Debris scraped against hulls, and the faint shimmer of shields flared as the ships moved closer to their target. As they approached, the station stirred to life. Panels along its surface slid open, revealing weapon emplacements that glowed with an eerie red light. "They've seen us," Atlas reported. "Weapon systems are powering up." Kane's voice was calm but commanding. "All ships, engage. Focus fire on their weapons arrays. Don't let them target the fleet." The first barrage erupted, streaks of light cutting through the darkness as the station's defenses came online. Beams of energy lanced toward the human ships, but the fleet was ready. Flak cannons fired in synchronized bursts, intercepting projectiles before they could reach their targets. The void was alive with fire and chaos, the sounds of battle reverberating through every ship. "Target their power cores," Kane ordered. "We need to cripple them before they can escalate." The Eternal Resolve unleashed its gravity pulse cannon, the weapon's force rippling through the station's exterior. Metal buckled and cracked, exposing the glowing conduits beneath. Smaller ships darted in, their railguns hammering at the weak points, but the station fought back with relentless precision. "Admiral," Atlas said, its tone unusually urgent, "new energy signature detected. They're activating a secondary device." The tactical display updated, highlighting a massive energy spike deep within the station. The readings were volatile, suggesting the creation of another singularity generator. "They're going to detonate," Kane said, his voice sharp. "They'd rather destroy the station and us than let us take it." The bridge fell silent for a heartbeat before Kane's voice cut through the tension. "Prepare the infiltration team. We need to neutralize that device from the inside." In the launch bay, Captain Ward and his team readied themselves once more. The air was heavy with the smell of oil and sweat, the faint vibration of the ship's engines, a reminder of the chaos outside. Ward adjusted his helmet, his voice firm as he addressed his squad. "This is it," he said. "We get in, we take out that generator, and we get out. No distractions. If we fail, this station takes everything with it." The team nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. They boarded their drop pods, the doors sealing with a final hiss. Moments later, the pods launched, streaking through the battlefield toward the station. The impact of their landing shook the platform, the sound swallowed by the vacuum of space. The hatch blew open and the team spilled out, their rifles raised as they scanned for hostiles. The air inside the station was thin and cold, the faint hum of machinery reverberating through the walls. The corridors were labyrinthine, their walls pulsating with the same eerie light as the conduits outside. "Stay sharp," Ward said, his voice steady over the comms. "Move fast." The team advanced, their boots clanging against the metal floor. The scent of ionized air and overheated machinery filled their helmets, mingling with the faint metallic tang of their recycled oxygen. The station's defenders emerged from the shadows, their forms cloaked in angular armor that gleamed with alien precision. "Contact!" one soldier shouted as plasma bolts lit up the corridor. Ward dropped to one knee, firing controlled bursts that struck their attackers with pinpoint accuracy. The team moved with brutal efficiency, their training honed for moments like this. The air filled with the sounds of combat, shouts, the whine of plasma fire, and the sharp crack of railguns. They reached the core chamber, a massive room dominated by the singularity generator. The device's rings spun at blinding speed, their glow casting harsh shadows across the walls. The energy emanating from it was palpable, a suffocating pressure that seemed to warp the very air around them. "Set the charges," Ward ordered. "We take it out, but we're not sticking around for the fireworks." The team spread out, placing explosives at key points around the generator. The room trembled as the station's defenders closed in, their relentless assault forcing the soldiers to fight on two fronts. "Charges set," a soldier shouted. "Timer's running." "Fall back," Ward barked. "Now!" The team retreated, firing as they moved. The corridor behind them lit up with explosions as the defenders gave chase, their relentless assault shaking the walls. The soldiers reached their extraction point just as the charges detonated, the shockwave tearing through the station. From the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Kane watched as the station began to collapse. Its structure buckled, the glowing conduits flickering and dying as the singularity generator imploded. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but its force rippled outward, scattering debris and lighting the battlefield with a blinding flash. The human fleet withdrew, their ships battered but victorious. Kane exhaled slowly, the tension in his chest finally easing. The station was gone, and with it, the threat that had nearly consumed them all. On the surface of the Aedari colony, Elder Valor watched the light of the explosion fade, his crystalline form glowing with relief. Humanity had saved them, not just with their strength, but with their refusal to abandon those in need. Back on the bridge, Kane stood tall, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Send a message to Earth Command," he said, his voice steady. "Tell them the colony is secure and the Void Reaper's threat is neutralized, but whoever armed them is still out there." He paused, his jaw tightening. "We'll find them, and when we do, they'll learn what it means to stand against humanity." The Eternal Resolve turned toward the stars, its engines burning brightly as it disappeared into the void, a beacon of defiance and determination. The battle was over, but the fight for justice was just beginning.